Welcome back again to our AP Statistics Summer Workshop. Today, in this video, we are going to learn to create histograms from lists. And I'm going to refer you to the worksheet that I posted for you on my big campus. It looks like this. This is the top of page 4 of the worksheet. At the top of page 4, we have this data list. All these data items are the ages of our United States presidents at the time of their inauguration. We're going to enter all this data into list 1. I'm going to ask you if you haven't entered that into list 1 yet, then please pause the video and enter that into list 1 right now. If you've entered all the data into list 1, turn the calculator on. You have the cursor in the upper left-hand corner of the main display window. Hit Stat, Edit, and take a look at your list. It should look like this. I'm going to point out a few functions about navigating through a list. If your cursor is way at the top, this is cell number 1, and you get an indication that this is cell number 1 of list 1 right down here in your lower monitor window. So this tells me that in the first cell of list 1, I've got an item of 57. And if you use your arrow key to arrow down, you can go down and review your items one at a time. The second cell should contain a 61, the third cell a 57, fourth cell a 57, all the way down. And if you arrow up all the way, you can actually go to your last item by arrowing up through your list, and it'll bring you up here. You can see that your 43rd item should have a value of 54. So you should have a total of 43 items entered into list number 1. Let's go ahead and quit this, and let's review some of the things we've learned before. If we wanted to know the mean and the median of this list, we can figure it quickly by hitting a Stat, right arrow to Calc, do a one variable statistical summary. So in other words, highlight the 1 and hit Enter. And you want to do that on list 1. Now if you don't indicate list 1, the calculator will default to list 1. So if all your data is in list 1, you don't have to put a list 1, but it's if you have your data someplace else, you have to always specify which list. But if you don't specify a list, it will default to list 1. If you hit Enter, according to this, the X bar of my list, I'm going to zoom in for you so you can see a little bit better. In other words, remember, X bar is synonymous with mean. X bar is our statistical symbol for mean. It tells me that the mean age of our United States presidents at the time of their first inauguration is about 54.8 years. If you arrow down to median, you can see that the median of this list is 55. Now, when we get together in class in the fall, we're going to talk about the significance of the mean and the median, and what it means when the median is greater than the mean, and what it means when the mean is greater than the median. But for right now, I just want you to practice calculating the median and the mean from a data list, and we've just done it. Let's go ahead and quit this. Hit Second, Quit, and then clear out your window. And what we want to do is we want to build a histogram of all the data in list 1. To do that, we're going to hit Secondary Function. That's our blue button here in the upper left-hand corner. Let me zoom out for you again so you can get a better view of what buttons I'm pushing. And we don't have to go out quite that far. So my objective here in this video is to focus in on the video. I want to video all the important buttons that we use when we're pushing buttons. The important buttons at the bottom of our display is like the on-off switch, but we all know where that is. And if you don't know, because I don't know if I've ever mentioned this in another video. The enter key is down here in the lower right hand. So whenever you hear me say enter, I'm pushing that button. Alright, so I think we're ready to go to work. Okay, that looks like an optimum presentation for our video. What we want to do is we want to build a histogram, or we want to create a histogram. The calculator will do it quite quickly by using your secondary function key. If you hit second, and then your function key, which is y equals, the secondary function on your function key is stat plot. In other words, a statistical plot. If you hit that key, you're going to come to this menu. You have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plots. Actually, the fifth one is not a plot. This is just a status of your plots. And here it says that the plots are on, and that's because when I turned on my calculator, I already had plot 1 and plot 2 on. That's from a previous activity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn them off for you. To toggle your plots on and off, notice right now my cursor is highlighting 1. So if I want to turn off plot 1, I hit enter. And I'm going to use my arrow key over to off. It's toggling there right now. And if I hit enter, it's now turned plot 1 off. If you use your arrow key and come up to plot 2, hit enter, I'm going to turn that one off also. Now, I'm guessing that your calculators have all the plots turned off. If not, make sure they're all turned off right now. Hit second Y, we'll go back to our stat plot menu. It should look like this. They should all be off. We only want to turn on the plots that we're going to be using. And in today's video, we're just going to be using plot 1. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. To turn it on, I make sure that my cursor is highlighting plot 1. Hit enter. Make sure my cursor is on the on and hit enter. That'll make sure that plot 1 is on. And then I'm going to arrow down, because this menu asks me for the type of plot that I want to create. We've got scatter plots and linear regressions, and this is the one we're interested in right now. What we want to do is we want to create a histogram. So we're going to arrow over to histogram, hit enter, and make sure then that after you've got that selected, that your X list, which is in list 1, that your display says list 1, because that's what we're going to display. And then our sequence of commands that are going to create our graph will be the zoom button. You're going to hit zoom 9, because if you hit zoom, notice you come to this menu, and if you go to item number 9, it's zoom for a statistical plot. So as we go through this course, we're going to use the zoom 9 function quite often. So in this case, hit zoom 9, and it will create the histogram for you. The histogram looks good. This has some defaults that uses our first observation as our minimum value, and our last observation is the maximum value, and that doesn't always give you the best presentation. If you use your trace key, trace is right here, hit trace, notice that we call this the spider cursor, is on the first bar, and then we have some information on the first bar. It says that the minimum value there is 42 and our maximum is at 46.5. And if you arrow over to the second bar, you can see what the minimum value of that bar is and what the maximum value is. Arrow over to the third bar, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Now the N here tells us how many items are within that range of values. In other words, if you look at your last bar, the minimum value is 69, the maximum is 73.5. There's one item in there. And if you arrow back to the left, you can see that in your sixth bar, the minimum value is 64.5, the maximum is 69. There are 2 items that fall within that range, and etc. Here's the fifth bar. You can see that its minimum value is 60, its maximum value is 64.5, and there are a total of 7 items that fall within that range. But what we want to do is we want to kind of clean up our display a little bit. To clean up our display, we're going to use our window button. Hit window. And this is all just guiding you through the steps that are also printed out for you in your worksheet. What we want to do in this window display is we're going to, the X minimum of 42, that's our lowest item. But what I want to do is create bars that are a value, have a range of 5, so that each bar is 5. If we go back to our graph right now, you can see that, for instance, in our first bar, each bar is about 4.5 units in range, and I want to make it an even 5. I think that's going to clean up our display a little bit. So to do that, we're going to hit window. And instead of starting at our minimum observation, I'm going to start at 40. And I want you to do the same thing. And then for the maximum value, instead of using 73.5, I noticed that we had no presidents that were over age 70 when they were inaugurated. So our maximum, let's change that to 70 instead. And then our scale, instead of making it 4.5, we'll make it an even 5. The Y minimum and Y max, we don't really need to adjust right now. And as we go through class and create more and more histograms, I'll explain to you the significance of these minimum values for Y and the maximum values for Y. We just basically want to make sure that in our display window, we don't cut off the tops of our histograms. That's why we have those options there. And we really don't need to adjust that in this case. Now, Zoom 9 is the command that we use to get to our histogram, but when you dress the window like this, you don't want to do a Zoom 9, otherwise it'll go back to those default values. So now all you have to do is hit your graph key, and it'll take you to a display that looks like this, which is a much nicer presentation, and it's much easier to interpret. If you do a trace right now, you can see that the first bar is a nice, neat minimum value of 40 and maximum value of 45. There are 2 items that fall within that range. The second bar has a minimum value of 45 and a maximum of 50. There are 6 items that fall within that range. And as you use your arrow key to the right and trace those values, it'll give you an information on each of the bars in your histogram. And that covers everything I wanted to cover on this video about creating a histogram and then using your window to make adjustments to make a better presentation. I want you to review all the commands that I had you do, and I want you to review how to adjust the width and the minimum and maximum in the window. And if you'd like, challenge yourself by finding a data list online, entering the data, and then challenge yourself by creating histograms, and let the calculator default to a histogram, and then you dress the window to make it look nicer. And with that, we have one more video that I want you to view. And for right now, we're going to say goodbye until we come to the next video.